Not all that long ago, the concept of artificial intelligence felt like some far off notion that current generations might only tangibly encounter. Now, today, digital technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning are everywhere, promising to change many aspects of our lives and how we live them. The workplace is certainly not an exempt from both the direct and indirect effects of AI. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Analytics Inside podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving technology space. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. The recruitment as a career is the epitome of the phrase trying to find a needle in a haystack. Economic fluctuations, a demand in a particular sector, and overabundance of graduates with a particular qualification. All of these things and more can lead to some jobs having hundreds or even thousands of applicants rushing for a single position when it crops up. With so many individuals competing for a dramatically small number of jobs, how do recruiters find ways to make their lives easier and the jobs more manageable? Today with us, we have Mr. Pasupathi, Chief Operating Officer at HirePro. Hi, Mr. Pasupathi, how are you doing?
Hi Priya, good afternoon. I'm doing good and thanks for the invite for the podcast. So looking forward for the conversation.
Definitely, likewise, and it's a pleasure to have you with us at a podcast as well. So let's get started with telling more about what exactly is HirePro, what is its role, its specialization, what are some particular solutions that HirePro focuses on.
Absolutely. So maybe I'll touch upon a little bit of the history of the organization so that we can look at the context better. So we started off as CareerNet way back in '99, and CareerNet is one of the largest recruitment firm in India, close to 2,000 recruiters. In fact, we will be celebrating our 25th year anniversary in November this year. And when we started off the journey, when recruitment was quite nascent in India, we saw the evolution of a lot of these organizations setting up their operations in India. There was a lot of growth of especially tech talent that was required. And there was some kind of connective platform required between the supply and the demand. And so that's how CareerNet began. But then we realized that recruitment being a highly transactional business, there was a lot of automation that was also required. There was a lot of assessments that was required to manage the funnel better. And that gave birth to HirePro. So HirePro primarily focuses on recruitment automation, the new age solutions that are there now, the assessments. And we also specialize in college hiring as a vertical, and plus helping organizations to manage their talent supply much better with the use of interviews, assessments, and so on. So even though there are a lot of these applicant tracking systems that organizations have within their system, but given the volume of talent pipeline that comes into these systems, you need very specialized tools which help the recruiter to manage things better. And that was the reason why HirePro was born. And we have been in this space for the last 20 years now, and catering to close to almost 200 odd organizations, serving them with various solutions.
Great. Yeah, I think you rightly mentioned that when we're talking about the workplace and workforce development, it's very important as to, we have particular tools and set of platforms that can help us automate certain aspects of recruitment and ensure that we are hiring the right person for the right job. And likewise, where the applicant itself is also pretty much happy to join the organization and making it all a very seamless and a smooth process. So I think automation or other technologies, like I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence, one can streamline and optimize every stage of the hiring journey from sourcing to onboarding. So moving ahead, can you also tell us more about yourself, your journey till date, your role as a chief operating officer at HirePro, and your contribution towards the company?
Sure. So I graduated from IIT Delhi in '99. I started my career in software development. I was with SAP Labs uh, for almost 7 years, and then I decided to join CareerNet HirePro, which was in the recruitment space, primarily because me and Anshuman were batchmates from the campus. Anshuman and Rishi are the co-founders of HirePro and CareerNet. And since there was this connect, and One thing that I saw in my previous organization, when I joined, we were close to 200 people. When I left the organization within 6 to 7 years, we'd grown to almost 3,000 people. So most of the times, recruitment was one key activity that we all were performing. And I saw that it's a very, very interesting space. Although when I came into HirePro, there was not too much of tech involved at that point of time, because in 2006, 2007 era, recruitment was still, I would say, more brick and mortar. We used to go to colleges. We used to have these paper pencil assessments that were being done. And assessments was also not a very key differentiator in those days. Access to talent was a challenge because you did not have a very evolved social media platforms. You didn't have LinkedIn. You didn't have, internet was there, but still you didn't have smartphones. So access to talent was a challenge at that time. And we as an organization knew how to access this talent. Over the years, we kind of focused on bringing in technology, automating. That was the first phase. And now is the phase where there's a lot of AI and intelligence that is being used or built into our platforms. And I've been part of this journey along with where we have a very strong leadership team, our CTO, our product officers, and the team which we have built over the last 10 years have really contributed to the growth of the platform. And since we had a large customer base, even before the automation existed, it was, I would say, relatively easy for us to kind of penetrate more within our customers and also to add new customers in India. And over the years, what we have also seen is a lot of our customers being multinationals, we have got access to international talent, space as well, where we've been solving problems. So that's pretty much have been my journey in terms of the organization, adopting tech, building newer platforms, building newer solutions as we are going about this. And we are primarily based out of Bangalore, but then we have delivery teams which are spread across at least 20 to 30 cities, because some of these activities are also little offline. And so that's pretty much how my journey has been on the HirePro side of the organization from 2006 till date.
Great. Your journey seems quite fascinating, Pasupathi, and it's inspiring to see your passion and your core mission of probably streamlining the entire process in an organized landscape of recruitment. Well, I wouldn't want to particularly call it unorganized, but I think in today's global market where we are attracting talent, retaining them is also one of the main concerns for a lot of companies. And with, like I mentioned earlier, with so many each, if any post that comes up, I think it attracts thousands of applications. So it becomes pretty challenging for the HR or team to sort through all different applications and select the right candidates. And sometimes it might happen that, if we are involved in a very human centric process, then mistakes are bound to happen. And I came across a study where it showed that around 52% of the recruitment and talent acquisition specialists find screening candidates from the application pool the hardest part of recruitment process. So, with all these aspects that we're discussing right now, how does your AI-powered platform HirePro different, or makes it easier for people to use that platform compared to traditional recruitment methods?
Sure. So, see, the interesting point for us was we did not build the automation solutions first because we were primarily servicing our customers. So our knowledge of basically how the talent pool behaves, how the talent perceives the brand of an organization, how organizations are currently structured and managing their processes, what are the typical thought process of a recruiter, of a hiring manager, how does the candidate think and behave before the interview, after the interview, before they join. All this was known to us because we were handling a fairly large volume of entry level, mid level, and senior level talent as part of the overall group. Now, hence, it became very easier and relevant for us when we were trying to build these solutions, be it talent branding, be it assessments, or the workflow for hiring, or even for onboarding. So that's the reason where we were also able to create a very good consulting layer for a good number of our customers, because today you have a lot of assessment platforms in the market, but the challenge that organizations face is that it's just like you're going to a pharmacy and you're collecting some medicines, whereas if you go to a doctor, they help you understand what is your problem and then prescribe you the right kind of medicines that needs to be taken. In a similar manner, when you are designing a solution for a customer, it is very very important to just understand very specific to the customer, what is their brand pull, what is their USP, how are their hiring managers thinking about the tier of talent they want to hire, and then design all of these things through. So with that context, let me now answer your question, because I mean this was required to kind of help people understand how these solutions look different. I think the first element starts off with the talent branding itself. If you're able to reach out to the right candidate pool, then your ability to probably select quality candidates becomes a little more easier. So be it the college hiring front or the lateral front, so we have built platforms, and since we understand which talent pool would really be interested in these kind of job families, so we help organizations to reach to the relevant pool rather than generally reaching out to the entire universe of candidates, which actually puts a little more pressure on your system in terms of screening and selection and so on. So in most of these cases, we design workflows for the organization where the candidate comes through a specific, what we might call it as a microsite or a landing page, where based on the job role, we ask some very basic questions for the candidate. And so that the only relevant ones move on to the next level. And the recruiter does not have to really spend too much of time and effort to understand who's okay, not okay, and so on. And then it comes to the specific activity is where our assessments, so we have a fairly deep expertise in assessments where our teams can evaluate, I mean, easily around almost 1,000 job families across tech and non-tech. And these specific assessments helps not just from an elimination standpoint, but also are able to kind of place the candidate in the right tier of talent that is required. Just to give you an example, if somebody is looking for a developer, say a full stack developer, which is one of the most common skills that everybody looks for today, the person could either fit for an IT services organization, or the person could fit for a GCC, one of the captives, or it could be a product company, or it could be a startup. Now, for the same skill, the assessments have to be different and has to be made relevant. Second, when these assessments are being administered, you also would want to ensure that there is no malpractice or any attempt to malpractice that happens. Otherwise, the entire sanctity of the examination is gone. And of late you've seen in the news as well, where there's a large population questioning on how examinations are held, how they're conducted, how are they evaluated. So for an organization also, it's a huge, the brand, and also they want to ensure the sanctity of the process. So that's the reason where we have a AI-enabled deep proctoring, which looks into candidate behavior, if they've taken any kind of an assistance. And at the first place, whether it's the same candidate who's coming across from the first round of assessments to interviews till the person comes on board. Now, the intelligence that has been built ensures to see whether the same candidate is there throughout the process, any kind of an attempted malpractice or a malpractice was there, where the recruiter does not have to really spend so much of time to go through these long videos or kind of have to see whether there was any background whisper, somebody was assisting and so on. So the AI will automatically detect and let the recruiter know. It will not take a call. The recruiter has to take a call, but then it provides all the necessary information based on which the recruiter can take that call. Apart from that, we are almost in the final stages of releasing some more products in this space. So today we have a very interactive interviewer that we have built based on the job family. It would ask certain questions to the candidate, and it can automatically filter based on the responses, saying whether the candidate is fit for the second round of interview or not. See, in most of the job families, say, especially like your voice assessments or in some of these frontline jobs, which are sales, a good 15-minute conversation will help you to understand whether we need to interview the candidate further or not. It could be either the communication skill or it could be the relevance, because you would understand in the Indian context, people write everything on the resume. But when you ask these questions, you'll be able to figure out whether what they wrote on the resume is what is really the candidate knowing or has done. And even when it is very tech skills, you can ask them some basic questions and help them to move. Now, powered by all these AI platforms today, organizations are able to do two, three things. One, they are able to actually use their own brand to attract a lot of candidates. People have been historically doing that, but then they end up inviting close to 30,000, 40,000, 1 lakh candidates per month on on their website, and but they don't know how to really screen and then manage that. So as a result, even though they have a huge pool of database lying within their their own premises, they still go out to look at talent because they're not sure whether these candidates are relevant, how many of them are interested or not. So our entire suite of solutions takes care of managing this pipeline better, assessing them better, ensuring the assessment is done in the right form, also a good amount of screening that helps you to figure out whether the recruiter needs to really start off the conversation for an interviewer. I mean, just to give you some numbers so that we kind of give you little more idea of what is the kind of problem statement we are talking about. I mean, today there could be around 1,000 resumes coming to the website of an organization. They would find out of this not more than 100 of them relevant for that particular job. When you start screening them or putting in assessments, you might end up not getting more than 10 or 15 of them, and you might end up probably hiring just one or two. Now, this ratio 1 is to 1,000 is so mind-boggling for organizations, so they're generally not able to process it. So with the R automation, typically the recruiter starts off at a base value of not more than 20, 30 candidates, because from that 1,000 to 20, our platform would have done all of those things that was required, and the recruiter now can engage just with this 20 and move on. So it's a huge cost saving for the organizations. A lot of talent also now believes that this is the right way to approach an organization. So I would say it's a real game changer for most of our clients as to how do they manage their talent pipeline better.
Great. I think yes, HirePro comes out as a more comprehensive platform in terms of starting from screening candidates, their behavior to the final onboarding. And thank you for explaining us with a couple of examples because it helped us understand what exactly is the problem statement that the HirePro is trying to solve. And like you mentioned, I think earlier resumes once more like the cornerstone of the hiring process. And with time, I think it became very difficult for hiring managers to screen out essential information about job candidates. And that's where I think emerging technologies like artificial intelligence come into play because it streamlines the search and decision process for HR managers by scanning each resume and probably searching for resume keywords to determine whether the prospective employee has the edge requirements for a given position and then proceeding ahead with the further steps. So I think that simplifies a lot of aspects for the HR team and also for understanding whether everything is in place and that there are no loopholes in it. So having said that, can you also share, if it's possible, to some success stories as to how HirePro has helped certain clients of yours, and if you can also share some success metrics?
Sure, I will do that. And I just wanted to add a certain point which you spoke about the resumes. See, in fact, if you look at resumes in certain situations and in certain job families, really are not very helpful both for the recruiter as well for the candidate as well. If you look at a lot of these jobs which are at an entry level and where it could be largely around operations, sales. Now, in these kind of jobs, the resume does not really give you a picture of what the individual might be able to do. And as a result, the resume is irrelevant. What is relevant in that resume is possibly just the phone number and the email ID, how you reach out to the candidate, and for organization to know whether the person is eligible to work because they have some degree or not. But really, other things don't matter, and hence, an assessment or an evaluation that I spoke about is relevant. The other big thing which actually helps in a much more inclusive way of hiring is the fact that when people are changing jobs across job families, for example, let's say in my case, I was in software development and I wanted to move into recruitment. If somebody had looked at my resume, they would have rejected me outright because there are no skills of recruitment that exists. And so there only a conversation might have helped to understand and assess what the person brings onto the table. So today within organizations as well, when people are applying for internal job postings, and that's what is really getting promoted in most of the organizations, or sometimes when you're doing a diversity hiring, when you're trying to hire people after a career break, the regular assessments just fails. The resumes actually go against the candidate. So that is the reason where the HirePro suite of interviewing solutions and assessments really help organizations to look at the individual as a whole rather than just the skills onto the table. Sorry, because you spoke about the resumes and this thought was there on my mind, and hence I shared that. And now I'll talk about
Sure,
the
sure.
success stories that you spoke about. See, I'll speak of two specific cases. So, if you look at college hiring in India for a large organization, say some of the ones which hire, say, in the tune of, say, 20, 30,000 people, in a very traditional manner, they would take roughly around 8 to 10 months to complete this hiring process. The hiring starts off in the month of, say, July or August, and where you go, you send out teams of 5, 10 people to each of these colleges. So, and typically, you go college by college, you have different sets of teams traveling to different parts of the country to do this hiring. And so it takes time because you do the event for 2 days, one day your team travels and they come back, and so on and so forth. Now, one of our customers has adopted this solution, and this hiring, which used to take typically around 8 months, they're able to do it roughly between 10 to 12 weeks. And the reason is that one of the things that has really helped with automation of college hiring on the HirePro platform is that sitting here in one of the locations, could be Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, Hyderabad, you have access to the entire population of India. Whereas in the traditional way of college hiring, if you're in Bangalore, your ready access was to colleges in Bangalore, in and around Karnataka, then for Tamil Nadu. So organizations would tend to shortlist colleges also based on proximity. The second element was that organizations would also shortlist colleges based on the yield. So if I go to this college, 100 people appear, I'm able to hire, say, around 40 people. So I'll say this is a good college. Now that is how they would rate these colleges and would traditionally go there. Possibly there's a college which is diametrically opposite to where you are situated, and or probably the yield is not so great. But then there are some good, bright kids who are there in that college. Organizations would typically miss out on them. Now, because of the operations of traveling is missed out, today roughly 3 to 4 lakh of these candidates across the country register on a platform. The eligibility check is more done on their marks, CGPA, and projects rather than whether they're coming from which college. Basis which today, because we can kind of run large scale assessments, you can do like 10, 15, 20,000 assessments on a single day. So pretty much within like a week to 10 days or 12 days, you're able to complete the assessments for all of these students. And we have very, very specialized workflows which helps you to do like 5 to 10,000 interviews on a single day, and with very less effort from the recruiter, because it's most of this is driven by the candidate, because candidates decide when they want an assessment, candidates decide when they're coming for an interview. So that way you actually put the automation in the center of the candidate, not the recruiter. You give a better experience, and then you do not have these no shows and other things as well. So imagine you're able to do like 10,000 assessments in a single day. Next day you are able to do around 5,000 interviews. So by day 3, 4, you've got the results. So that's where we've been able to kind of do these waves of hiring and help the organization to kind of compress their 10 months activity to around 12, 14 weeks or so. Second is because they also do a lot of off-campus hiring. Their ability to now attract talent across the country becomes very, very easy for them. And now the focus is shortlist the candidate, not the college, which is really, really helpful for a good number of candidates. So this is one such case on the college hiring side, which has really helped. The other one is actually a very recent one, and this is more from the aviation industry. Today in India, we see a good amount of growth in that particular industry, and they hire across all job families, including in-flight attendants. You have a lot of operations, and all of these roles requires. Now, traditionally, these organizations, since they are also present in so many cities in the country, they would typically go to the city or to at least a nodal center, book a hotel, do a drive. They used to get, say, around 60 to 100 people coming in every day for the interview. Then they will shortlist, and they would might have to do around, say, 30 to 40 events in a single month to meet their numbers. Now, they have started using our platform. In fact, they just started the pilot, but the very first pilot, instead of getting these 100, 200 candidates, they were able to get roughly around 8 to 10,000 candidates, because the entire population of the country knew which city, what role is being hired by this organization. And as a result, these applicants were able to apply. And then our assessments yielded what is the right set of people they need to hire. And that's how the process is kind of getting started on. So it's a game changer both for the talent as well as for the organization, that the talent is able to figure out the jobs, and similarly organizations are also able to figure out the right kind of talent that is there. So it's a cost saving by a huge multiple. You don't have to now travel to these places, wear and tear. And also, one thing to say, all this travel was obviously leaving a large carbon footprint as well, right? Now, today, from the comfort of my home or office, I'm able to do interviews. The candidate is able to do it from their places. Yes, there is an element of branding for which some of these companies do send one or two representatives to these colleges who meet these students, because that's also required. But the recruitment process by and large has kind of gone totally online. And the term campus hiring traditionally always meant that you are inside the college and do this, whereas now new terms have come in, which is like online, offline, and so on, because campus hiring now does not necessarily mean that you're inside the campus. It's just that you're trying to hire people from college. So these are two specific cases apart from the many ones which personally, we really as an organization we are very ticked about and very passionate about, and that we have been able to bring this change.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for helping us understand and giving us a scenario as to how things were earlier adapted in terms of campus hiring, and how things can be with HirePro or with integrating technology as a key role in terms of entire recruitment process. And yes, you rightly mentioned when we're talking about remote work collaboration and understanding that recruitment can now also be done remotely, it's definitely a game changer for both the prospective client as well as the employer. So I think that that's where both the expectations are also aligned on the same page, and that makes definitely a lot of sense when we're talking about today's tech-driven world. But moving ahead, I want to understand when we're talking about artificial intelligence. So basically now AI models they kind of understand your historical hiring activity and make decisions about the future, and is capable of flagging up any promising candidates and filter out anyone unsuitable. I think this seems to be what happened in systems such as the Amazon's failed human resource AI project. So historical data said that most previous successful hires were men. Therefore, the AI prioritized applications from men. And even if the resume doesn't explicitly mention gender, the system might discriminate in some ways. So, for example, it can ignore candidates who went to an all women college, played on a women's sports team, or worked in a field traditionally associated with female employees. And like you earlier said, for example, you were in a software development background and then you came into recruitment. So, if someone would have seen a resume without having a conversation, so probably they wouldn't have proceeded ahead with your resume. So, how does your platform or the AI models at HirePro ensure unbiased and fair candidate selection? And along with that, there are like two questions. So, this is one. The other one would be while screening out candidates, how do you also ensure data privacy and security in terms of also considering and protecting sensitive candidate information?
Sure. So as I said, since we had this entire background of how recruitment runs, so we were extremely paranoid about some of these aspects when we're building this platform, because we have seen human biases even without automation, how hiring managers used to take decisions about a certain college or about a certain talent pool, or sometimes there used to be gender bias as well. And India, you have like various, I would say, you could kind of create those cohorts. It could be around language, ethnicity, alumni, and so on and so forth, so which all would affect the hiring process. See, when you use AI for a lot of your decision making, then obviously you could run into some of these challenges. So when we started off building things, so we kind of built it in 2 3 stages. I think the first stage was just automating certain processes so that it helps the recruiters to manage fast. So instead of a paper pencil test, do a computer based test which helps you to assess people simultaneously, get results quickly, and so on. Second, you build in some basic, I would say, intelligence, and then you see how this goes on in certain cases, like a resume parser. Instead of you populating the field from the resume, we would have the resume parser take the resume and put it in the right fields. Now, then the recruiter just has a look to see whether everything is fine, and then it moves on. Today, even within our entire recruitment process, the AI never takes a decision. I mean, just in the case of our proctoring, the AI, if it sees some background noise, it would mark it saying there's a problem rather than saying there. It could say there could be a problem rather than saying there is a problem. Imagine we like this is an assessment that I'm taking, and all of a sudden somebody knocks at my door, and I just had to tell them, hey, please don't disturb. I'm taking a test. Now that would get recorded. If I have used AI not in the right manner, it would say this candidate used some assistance and would just mark it off. Or if somebody was, I'm taking this assessment from home and somebody just walks past me behind and it would detect a human face, it could say that, yes, probably something could have happened. I'm working on my laptop and the antivirus popped up, so I will navigate from my screen. So there are so many cases where you really don't know what led to that particular behavior. So in our case, the AI would mark these cases and ask the recruiter to review. In fact, if it sees an anomaly which is just a few seconds, it might not even mark it. It will say it's okay, because within like 4 seconds, I can't speak to somebody, collect the answer, and move on. So it would know that it was some voice, because it would categorically recognizes human voice rather than some other noise and other things. So whenever you're using AI to assist the recruiter, you are able to kind of really get quite magical results in this thing. And obviously, the new generative AI solutions that we are also building, the that's one of the reasons where we are not just letting these solutions out in the market at large. These are getting tested across huge set of candidates, and in most of these cases, these are more, I would say, of assisting the recruiter rather than a pure elimination. If I have to speak about our AI interview solution that I spoke about as well, it not just gives a feedback, but it also captures the conversation that has happened between the candidate and the platform, and you get a voice recording, plus it will give you a gist of what was spoken by the candidate as well. So these are some of the ways where we have ensured that there is no bias that comes in, and plus there is no error caused because of automation that could lead us as well. In some of the places, like we have an interviewing platform. Now, the interviewer would generally be speaking and they'll just go on, ask questions and do it. But at the end of it, now we can provide a summary to the interviewer on how the conversation went, rather than it automatically summarizing and saying yes or no. It just assists the interviewer to say this is how it is. It is just like if both of us are having a conversation and you have a component which summarizes this conversation for you more from a review at a later stage or whatever, rather than passing on a verdict, then it really helps. So in all our workflows, we have always ensured that there is a human element which finally takes a call rather than the AI taking the call on itself. The laborious part of finding it out is left to the AI. The decision making is left to the individual. And that is how we have ensured that there is no bias in our process, um, in all the elements that are getting used.
Great. Yeah, I think when we're talking about technology and it's advancing and evolving continuously, so having a human-centric aspect still being a part of the entire process is very important. Keeping in mind that we have to get rid of these unbiased outputs and making sure that that there's a fair candidate selection. And when we're talking about recruitment, I think it has changed significantly since the pre-internet world where jobs were just posted in local newspaper. And now, since everybody's trying to navigate in a digital marketplace, it's so important to have such tools and platforms like HirePro that are actually a game changer in the recruitment process. So, one last question for you, and that would be how do you see, or if you can expect any upcoming trends in the recruitment industry, and how do you see shaping those trends shaping the future of HirePro as well?
In fact, so one of the things that we have observed is in the last 18 months, there's not much of hiring that has happened across industry in India. And now all of a sudden we are seeing that as the market is kind of coming up a little bit, hopefully it does well in the coming months. Now, organizations went through this process of having a large team of recruiters. Then when the hiring came down, they kind of downsized the team. Some of them outsourced the entire recruitment. Some of them insourced them because they saw less volume. And so there have been all of these decisions being taken, which is very, very specific to the organization need, or sometimes it is the line of thought which the leader would want to do. So a same genre of organization would outsource and the other one would insource, and giving the logic in that manner. One of the things that we see happening, and especially on the higher pro side, is we see that the digital, I would say, recruitment is kind of taking shape significantly. Now, see, honestly, let's admit it. I'm sure the audience in the recruitment fraternity would definitely agree that automation was not something that everybody fully adopted. So you had an applicant tracking system in all of these organizations. It was largely used from a compliance standpoint where you create a requirement and you roll out an offer, whereas all the intermediate stages were run on Excel sheets or kind of offline. The recruiters found it very difficult, cumbersome to kind of update statuses and so on and so forth. So the platforms that HirePro is actually building is to bridge that gap between when the rec is getting created till the candidate comes on board. And that's why we integrate with a lot of these applicant tracking systems to run this process. The adoption of this platform being higher is because the recruiter actually finds this tool to be supporting them rather than to be an additional activity that they were supposed to do. So the trend that we are seeing is that organizations would adopt a lot of these digital solutions because they know two, three things. One, if my hiring goes up, I may not want to increase my recruitment team size because I really don't know when it will start coming down. Second, whether I insource or whether I outsource, every time a partner comes or I build my internal recruitment team, there is a lot of knowledge loss that happens. And there's obviously, I would say, a good amount of handshaking that is required, which sometimes might actually delay the process as well. Whereas if I automate large parts of this process, I would really make it very, very easy for anybody who comes in to just come pick it up and drive. So my vehicle remains the same, the driver might change. So that's one of the reasons where we are seeing organizations are using technology now to create business continuity for their process. And that's exactly the sweet spot that we see, as HirePro. So today we tell our customers that you always had this doubt whether should I cook my own food or eat out. HirePro will help you to modernize your kitchen so that you can create a better experience of cooking your own food. And if required, obviously, sometimes you could go out and do it. So we are actually making people do their job better. You can decide based on the volume how many people you want to put in the kitchen, and it helps you to kind of manage your costs much better, create a standard experience both for your internal stakeholder, that is the hiring manager, as well as the candidate outside. And that's, I believe, is the trend that is happening, because of which we're seeing adoption of the platform much higher than what it used to happen in the past. So it's the standardization that is happening. Otherwise, as you rightly said, you don't want to use the word unstructured. Yes, but that is how it is. It is very unstructured. Based on ratios are different for organizations. The job families within the organization could be multiple. Hiring managers, I would say, expectations and behavior could be very different in terms of how they look at talent. So if you want to standardize most of these things for the leadership within recruitment and HR, the automation really helps them to kind of make things predictable, because otherwise recruitment is the most unpredictable thing, because you don't know which candidate will back out at the interview stage, offer stage, join and left. Hiring managers, how do they select candidates when they have more recs, when they have less recs? All this will kind of be managed better once automation kicks in.
Right, definitely. I think there's still definitely a very unstructured process, even if we don't call it. But again, I think when you're talking about artificial intelligence in the HR and other businesses, I think there's no signs of slowing down, and it makes it very critical for the HR team and the HR professionals to learn about everything possible that's happening in this wave of emerging technologies. And whether you like it or not, and if you don't at least look into the possibilities of how different technologies can play an important role in your organization, there are chances that you are missing out on certain trends. And not because it will replace the people in your company, but because it will free up the time to do some important things and streamline the entire recruitment process. So I think that's how we should be proceeding ahead. And like you said, I think it's pretty unpredictable, but technology can definitely help to deal with such unpredictable scenarios and make sure that we are dealing in a very structured way. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Pasupati. It was a pleasure having you with us on a podcast. I think we discussed and highlighted some important aspects about recruitment industry and how technology is shaping its future.
Thanks, Priya. I too enjoyed the conversation, and
Thank
thanks
you.
thanks for getting me onto this podcast.
Yes, thank you so much. Likewise, Pasupati. So this is for our listeners. Stay tuned for upcoming podcast, and you can view and listen all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.